In life, views are everything. Everything.
Welcome back. Welcome back. This is the People's Voice. I am Trey Evans, and I am the People's Voice. Thank you again for checking out the podcast this week. As always, it is greatly appreciated. As always, we say thank you to everyone who has taken some time out to listen to the podcast today. We do understand that you could be utilizing your time to do something else, so we do appreciate you giving us this time to talk with you about what we're going to discuss today. But as always, thank you and welcome to the People's Voice podcast. So today I want to get into the subject of pollution. And I want to talk specifically about water pollution and pollution that is affecting our environments in terms of oceans and rivers and other water streams or water sources, I should say, around the world. And, I want to talk about this today because what kind of led me to want to talk about this is that I saw this video on the internet about pollutions that are in waterways, specifically pollutions that or waterways that are polluted by plastics. And it caught my attention because the video was done by a group called Sunday Watch, which is a group that is very much involved in not only getting the word out about plastic pollutions, plastic polluting our waterways, but also they've done a great job in terms of deploying resources, in terms of actual feet on the ground to tackle some of the challenges with plastic pollution in waterways. Specifically in waterways such as in Indonesia. And as I talk about this, I'll, give you a little bit more information, but, many people would assume, and even myself, I assume that, the pollution in the ocean, in terms of plastics, I just immediately assumed, well, again, this is a United States issue. Well, it's not a United States issue. Now, obviously, we are contributing to this as well. And I say we because I am a citizen of the United States. But this is an issue that is occurring, or in terms of the plastics that are being generated, a lot of this is being generated from smaller countries that are kind of responsible, if you will, for the mass pollution of water, or the mass pollution that is taking place of plastics in waterways. So, but going back, I was watching this video, and this group, the Sunday Watch group, they filmed themselves in action when they're cleaning up these waterways. So I want to play that video. And then, I'll kind of get a little bit further into, again, where this is occurring the most, what is being done, and what we all can do to kind of turn the tide here, or at least reduce some of this that's occurring. And so this video that I saw from the Sungate group, they actually had a time-lapse video of themselves actually cleaning out one of the waterways, or many waterways, streams and rivers in Indonesia. I believe this is in Bali. So let me play this video, and then we'll go from there. For those of you who are listening, I'm playing a video that was posted by the Sungay Watch Group. And they are actually, let me turn that down in terms of the music. I do not own the copyright. I don't want to be flagged by YouTube. But so in this video, and I'm describing it for those of you who are listening, it is a time lapse video. And what they're showing is multiple streams and waterways that they have cleaned, literally tons and tons of not only plastic pollution or plastics in these waterways, but also just tons of debris and trash that are in these waterways. And, I'm playing this video. And again, this is kind of what caught my attention to want me to, prompt me to do this story because, water is literally the most precious resource on planet Earth. For those who don't know, and I think I've talked about it on this podcast before, I am very much involved in sustainability and ESG goals and things of that nature. I've done that work for quite a number of years. And, so in terms of protection of the earth, polluting, providing that education to people, I'm very passionate about that. And so when I saw this, I said, okay, well, I've got to talk about this on the podcast, right? So, but going back to the video, so again, the Sungay Watch Group is a group that is deploying and working to clean out waterways that have been affected by plastic pollution and other pollutions as well, in Indonesia and in Bali. And so this video is, amazing. And what caught my attention was, as I was saying in the beginning, I was thinking, wow, well, if it's like this in Indonesia, I can only imagine what the levels of pollution are. Sorry, I got rubbing my beard against my zipper there. But if the levels of pollution are like this in Indonesia, I'm like, well, here in the United States, it's got to be out of control. Well, I was definitely wrong about that because in doing some additional research about this, one of the first things that came to mind or kind of was, pretty shocking, if you will, to say the least, is that in terms of the pollution in the ocean, in the Earth's ocean, the countries that are contributing most to this is not, the big countries that you would think, right? You would think, or I should say the more established countries, right? That you would think, the United States and the United Kingdoms and, some of the other more developed nations around the world. But in actuality, it is very much the smaller countries around the world that are contributing to the overall pollution in terms of water pollution and plastic pollution for the oceans and other waterways in the United States. Matter of fact, I was reading an article here from the Visual Capitalist, and in this article, and I'm kind of clicking at the same time, but in this article, they kind of broke it down in terms of total amount of plastic that is feeding or being dumped into the ocean every year. But in there, they broke down the countries by rank in terms of, which countries contribute the most in terms of pollution into the ocean. And literally ranked number one are the Philippines. Behind that, number two was India. Behind that, number three was Malaysia. Then 4, 5, and 6 are China, Indonesia, and Myanmar. And then it kind of rounds out. And then at the bottom is basically the rest of the world, So, the United States was not listed in there in terms of polluters of waterways, and specifically into the ocean. And so that kind of led me to, question, well, why is that? Right? Because the United States definitely, in terms of generating plastic waste, are, one of the top producers of generating plastic waste, right? Because of the accessibility and the consumerism that takes place, and obviously access to higher incomes where they can purchase and make and develop and manufacture products that require having plastics. I would think that's the case, but no, that's not the case. And one of the reasons why this is occurring is because, and I literally learned this myself, and it makes total sense. One of the biggest contributors to plastics ending up in waterways is something that they call urban runoff. And that's basically a term that describes how plastics get from, let's say, a street into the water. They call it urban runoff. And a lot of times this occurs not just from people littering in parks or other public areas, but a lot of times this can happen as a result of storms, rainstorms, or even, heavy windstorms. But the reason why those countries that I talked about previously are so high in terms of the amount of waste that is being generated from these countries is because a lot of these countries are on the coastline, and a lot of these countries are surrounded by water, right? The same things that people love about many of these countries, right? When they say, oh, how beautiful Bali is, and, Brazil or Thailand and things of that nature, that tropical environment, you have to remember that these countries are surrounded and very, very much border the Earth's oceans. And so it makes total sense why now these countries would be some of the highest contributors to the amount of plastic that is ending up in the waterways. I'm reading here again from this article from the Visual Capitalist, and it says, for example, it says China generates 10 times the plastic waste that Malaysia does, but 9% of Malaysia's total plastic waste is estimated to reach the ocean compared to 0.6% of China. And again, it is because Malaysia is a water-bordered country. So again, it makes sense. And, I just thought I would explain that because, being, again, just looking at the data in terms of the total amount of plastic that ends up in the ocean, I just thought, the bigger countries, the United States, the Chinas, the UKs would be the ones that are contributing to that. But actually, it's not even that. That is definitely not the case. 80%, I'm reading here as I'm going along, 80 to 90% of plastics in the ocean come from rivers and streams. So again, all roads lead to the ocean, right? And so the reason, or the method, if you will, of how these plastics get even to the ocean is that they have to be next to a stream, or they have to be next to a river for that urban runoff to occur. Or they can, be put in through sewage systems, especially when you're dealing with more developed countries, obviously like the United States and other countries. But those plastics go from streams and rivers into the ocean. And that's really the path that a lot of them take. And even in that video that I was showing of the Sungay group, when they were doing the stream clean, the thing that was, interesting about that particular video was the proximity to where a lot of those streams were, in terms of proximity to where they were in terms of residential areas. I mean, again, and I'm looking at the picture here as I'm talking. For those of you who are watching on YouTube, you can see literally there are homes in the area where all of this pollution is taking place. And this group was, cleaning out those areas, but it goes right in line with the information that I just read in terms of how a lot of these plastics end up in these streams and rivers is because, in the ocean, is because they go via streams and rivers, which are normally close to areas where they are heavy, where there is a heavy amount of population of people, in terms of how those plastics are able to get to those areas. And so why is this an issue, right? Because, and I know some people may think, well, there's millions and millions of miles of water on planet Earth. I mean, there's clearly enough water on planet Earth, right? The Earth is made up of 71% of water. But the interesting thing is that, for those who may not know, most of the water on Earth is not drinkable. And it is not fresh water, right? It's salt-based water, saline water. And the problem is that a lot of these plastics, again, end up in these water sources, these rivers and these streams, which are responsible for providing us with fresh drinking water. I'm looking at a graph here from the USGS, and they kind of broke out in terms of the percentage of water on Earth. And the percentage of water on Earth, 96% of the water on Earth are in oceans, seas, and bays. Well, again, that water is not drinkable water. Another 30% of, so that's 96% of the water on Earth. The thing is that in terms of fresh water, right? Fresh water, 68% of fresh water comes from or is in ice caps, glaciers, and snow. And in order for that to get to the people, those have to melt. And as you know, with glaciers, even though with global warming, those can take literally hundreds of years to melt. So that leaves us, in terms of fresh water, that leaves just groundwater, which is responsible for almost 30% of fresh water that we drink. And then also, I guess the next biggest contributor in terms of fresh water are lakes and a minute part of rivers. So you're literally talking about the clogging of when you start talking about rivers and lakes and even groundwater, because a lot of these plastics, seep into the ground. You're literally choking off the majority of water sources for people to be able to have fresh water. So this is why this is a huge issue and really needs, to have some light placed on it. That's really what I wanted to talk about today. I know I gave a lot of information and hopefully this information has been enlightening. As always, if you like, please leave a comment on our social media. You can reach me at I am Trey Evans on all social media platforms. And you could also reach me at the People's Voice Podcast on Instagram. So that is my time for today. As always, dreams are not just for sleeping. Please wake up and live your dreams. My name is Trey Evans, the people's voice. Tell somebody about the dream. Salute.